Space, everybody. Thank you for coming to see The Great Gatsby. My name is Richard Dowd. I'm the director of the show. So during the show, you might see this come on here and there. So you know, is it working? Yeah. Okay. It's hard to see from the bed. Anyways, we want to thank you for coming. We'd like to thank our sponsor for the show, the Cheney Property Management Group here in Newmarket. Let's give them a hand. Space, next week and the weekend after is Your Good Man, Charlie Brown, directed by Robert Collins II, who's also in this show tonight as Tom Buchanan. So, exits front and rear. The restrooms are in the rear. Karen is running the bar over there. Let's hear from Karen. So you can go and visit Karen during intermission. And without further ado, One More Thing Productions presents The Great Gatsby, a live radio play.
And we're on the air in 5, 4, 3.
WBFR in New York City.
This is the WBFR Playhouse of the Air. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Freddie Fillmore, and tonight we welcome your favorite Hollywood stars, Jake Lawrence, Sally Applewhite, Lana Sherwood, Tony Hunter, and Nelson North. And now we bring you F. Scott Fitzgerald's jazz age tale, The Great Gatsby. Remember the Charleston and all the wild, carefree dance crazes that made the jazz-mad 20s roar? When fortunes were made overnight and young America went joyriding on homemade hooch? Prohibition brought with it new ways to make big money, speakeasies, bootleggers, and rum runners. And out of the 20s came Jay Gatsby, who built an empire out of a dream in his heart. One of the men who knew Gatsby best was the young man who lived next door to him. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Nick Carraway.
In my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me some advice.
Whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the advantages that you've had.
In consequence, I'm inclined to reserve all judgments as a matter of infinite hope. When I came back from the East Coast last autumn, I wanted no more riotous excursions with privileged glimpses into the human heart. Only Gatsby was exempt from my reaction. Gatsby, who represented everything for which I have unaffected scorn. There was something gorgeous about him, an extraordinary gift for hope as I have never found in any other person. Gatsby turned out all right at the end. It is what preyed on Gatsby, what foul dust floated in the wake of his dreams that temporarily closed out my interest in the abortive sorrows and short-winded elations of men. My family's been well-to-do for 3 generations. I graduated from Yale and then participated in the Great War. I decided to go east and learn the bond business. It was a matter of chance that I should have rented a house in one of the strangest communities in North America. 20 miles from New York City, there are 2 unusual formations of land, a pair of what look like enormous eggs that jut out into Long Island Sound and are separated by a bay. I lived in West Egg. My house was squeezed between 2 huge places that rented for $15,000 a season. The one on my right was a colossal affair with a tower and a marble swimming pool and more than 40 acres of lawn and garden. It was Gatsby's mansion. The story of the summer began the evening I went across the bay to the more fashionable East Egg. I was invited to have dinner with the Buchanans, Daisy, my second cousin, and her husband Tom, whom I knew in college. He was one of those men that reached such excellence at age 21 that everything after savors of anticlimax. His family was enormously wealthy, and he'd left Chicago and come east in a fashion that rather took your breath away. When I arrived at their mansion, Tom rode up a huge lawn on one of his polo ponies.
Hey!
Oh, hello, Tom. Got a nice place here.
It belonged to an oil tycoon. Let's go inside.
A breeze blew through the room, and there was an enormous couch on which sat Daisy and another young woman, both in white.
Oh, Nick, I'm Carol. paralyzed with happiness.
Oh, hello, Daisy. Everyone in Chicago sends their love.
Do they miss me?
The whole town is desolate. All the cars have the left rear wheel painted black as a mourning wreath.
How gorgeous. Let's go back, Tom, tomorrow. You ought to see the baby. She's 2 years old. Haven't you ever seen her?
Never.
What you doing, Nick?
I'm a bond man with Probity Trust.
Never heard of him.
Ugh, I'm stiff. I've been lying on the sofa as long as I can remember.
Don't look at me. I've been trying to get you to New York all afternoon.
Nick, this is Jordan Baker. Have a drink, Jordan.
Oh, no thanks. I'm in training. You live in West Egg, Nick, right? So, you must know Gatsby.
Gatsby? What Gatsby?
Your dinner is served.
We were led out onto the porch where 4 candles flickered on the table.
Why candles? In 2 weeks, it'll be the longest day in the year.
Telephone for you, Mr. Buchanan.
Thank you. Excuse me.
I love to see you at my table, Nick. You remind me of an absolute rose. Excuse me.
This Mr. Gatsby you spoke of is my neighbor.
Shh. Don't talk. I want to hear what happens.
Is something happening?
You need to say you don't know? Oh, Tom's got some woman in New York. She may have had the decency not to phone him at dinner time. They're back.
There's a bird on the lawn that I think must be a nightingale. He is singing away. Isn't it romantic, Tom?
Very romantic.
After dinner, I followed Daisy to the porch. We sat down in a wicker settee.
We don't know each other very well, Nick. Even if we are cousins. You didn't come to my wedding.
Well, I wasn't back from the war.
Well, I've had a very bad time, Nick, and I'm pretty cynical about everything.
Well, you have your daughter. I suppose she talks and eats and everything.
Oh, yes. Listen, Nick. Let me tell you what I said when she was less than an hour old and Tom was God knows where. I woke up with an utterly abandoned feeling, and I asked the nurse if it was a boy or a girl. She told me it was a girl. I said, I'm glad it's a girl, and I hope she'll be a fool. Because that's the best thing a girl can be in this world, a beautiful little fool. I've been everywhere and seen everything. God, I'm sophisticated.
Daisy and I went back inside and joined Tom and Miss Baker.
10 o'clock. Time for this good girl to go to bed.
Jordan's going to play in the tournament tomorrow at Westchester.
Oh, you're Jordan Baker, the golfer.
Oh, that's right. Good night, Mr. Carraway. See you again.
Well, of course you will. In fact, I think I'll arrange a marriage. I'll fling you two together. You know, lock you up accidentally in linen closets and push you out to sea in a boat.
Good night. I haven't heard a word.
She's a nice girl.
She's going to spend lots of weekends out here this summer, Nick.
Is she from New York?
From Louisville. Our girlhood was passed together there.
At the end of the evening, I got up to go home.
Wait, I forgot to ask you something, and it's important. We heard you were engaged to a girl out west.
It's libel. I'm too poor.
But we heard it from 3 people, so it must be true.
I knew what they were referring to, but I wasn't even vaguely engaged and had no intention of being rumored into marriage. When I got home, I saw a figure standing on Gatsby's lawn with his hands in his pockets. He stretched out his arms in a curious way toward the dark water and a single green light that might have been at the end of a dock. When I looked once more, he vanished. Halfway between West Egg and Manhattan is a valley of ashes, a desolate industrial dumping ground. Above this gray land is a billboard prominently displaying the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg, blue and gigantic behind a pair of enormous yellow spectacles which some oculists set there to fatten his practice. These eyes seem to keep a watch on everything. Passengers on waiting trains can stare at the dismal scene too, for there is always a halt of at least a minute there, and that's how I first met Tom Buchanan's mistress. I went up to New York on the train with Tom one afternoon, and when we stopped by the ash heaps, he jumped to his feet and literally forced me from the train.
Shh, we're getting off. I want you to meet my girl.
I followed Tom to a garage. Prepared as George B. Wilson, cars bought and sold.
Hello, Wilson, old man. How's business?
I can't complain. When are you going to sell me that car?
Next week. I've got my man working on it now.
Hello. Get some chairs, why don't you, so somebody can sit down.
Oh, sure, Myrtle.
I want to see you, Myrtle. Get on the next train. I'll meet you by the newsstand on the lower level.
All right.
We left and waited for her at the station.
Terrible place, isn't it? It does her good to get away.
Doesn't her husband object?
He thinks she goes to see her sister in New York. He's so dumb he doesn't know he's alive.
So Tom Buchanan and his girl and I went up together to New York. Or not quite together, as Mrs. Wilson sat discreetly in another car.
Station, New York!
Tom helped Mrs. Wilson to the platform. Upstairs, she let 4 taxicabs drive away before she selected a new one. And in this, we drove up Fifth Avenue to an apartment building at 158th Street. I have to leave you here.
Oh, no, you don't. Myrtle'll be hurt if you don't come up to the apartment. Won't you, Myrtle?
Oh, come on, Nick. I'll telephone my sister, Catherine. She's said to be very beautiful by people who ought to know.
The apartment was on the top floor. Mrs. Wilson's sister arrived, and we sat on a sofa too large for the room as Tom and Mrs. Wilson occupied the bedroom.
I was at a party on Long Island about a month ago. A man named Gatsby. Do you know him?
I live next door to him.
Well, they say he's a cousin of Kaiser Wilhelm's. That's where all his money comes from, and you know what? I'm scared of him. Neither Myrtle nor Tom can stand the person they're married to. It's his wife that keeps them apart. She doesn't believe in divorce.
Who wants a drink?
Oh, yes, please.
Nick, did Tom tell you the story of how we met?
No, he didn't.
It was on the train. I was going up to New York to see Catherine and spend the night. I couldn't keep my eyes off him, but every time he looked at me, I pretended to be looking at the advertisement over his head. When he came onto the station, he was next to me, and his white shirt front pressed against my arm. And so I told him I'd have to call a policeman. But he knew I lied. I was so excited that when I got into a taxi with him, all I kept thinking about was, you can't live forever. You can't live forever.
Well, you can't. None of us can. Have another drink, Nick?
I've been living over that garage for 11 years. And I want you for myself, Tom. But no, there's Daisy.
Don't say her name, Myrtle.
Daisy. Daisy, Daisy, Daisy. I'll say it as many times as I want. Daisy, Daisy,
And with a short, deft movement, Tom broke Myrtle's nose with his open hand. Then there were bloody towels and Myrtle wailing in pain. I kept drinking, and next thing I knew, I was lying half asleep in the lower level of Pennsylvania Station, staring at the Morning Tribune and waiting for the train back home. There was music from my neighbor's house through the summer nights. Caterers would come with several hundred feet of canvas, buffet tables, and enough colored lights to make a Christmas tree of Gatsby's enormous garden. By 7 o'clock, the orchestras arrived, the bars in full swing, and floating rounds of cocktails permeate the garden. The first night I went to Gatsby's house, I was one of the few guests who had actually been invited. A chauffeur crossed my lawn early that Saturday morning with a note from his employer. The honor would be entirely Gatsby's if I would attend his little party that night. I wandered around rather ill at ease among swirls of people I didn't know. I slunk off in the direction of the cocktail table on my way to get roaring drunk when Jordan Baker came out of the house.
Nick, I thought you might be here. I remember that you live next door.
Oh, do you come to these parties often?
Oh, well, I like to come.
When I was here last, I tore my gown on a chair, and he asked me my name and address. Inside of a week, I got a package with a new evening gown in it. It was blue with lavender beads. $265.
There's something funny about a man that'll do a thing like that. He doesn't want any trouble with anybody.
Who doesn't?
Gatsby! Somebody told me they thought he killed a man once.
I don't think it's so much that. It's more that he was a German spy during the war. I heard heard that from a man who knew all about him. Grew up with him in Germany.
Oh, this is much too polite for me. Let's go find the host.
We walked into a Gothic library, paneled with carved English oak. A stout, middle-aged man with owl-eyed spectacles was sitting somewhat drunk on the edge of the table.
What do you think about these books? They're absolutely real. Pages and everything. Who brought you? I was brought by a woman named Roosevelt. I met her somewhere last night. I've been drunk for about a week now. I thought it might sober me up. Sit in the library.
We went back outdoors. There was dancing in the garden. By midnight, the hilarity had increased. I was still with Jordan. We were sitting at a table with a man of about my age. At a lull in the entertainment, he looked at me and smiled.
Oh, your face is familiar. Weren't you in the 3rd Division during the war?
Yes, I was in the 9th Machine Gun Battalion.
Well, I was in the 7th Infantry until June 1918. I knew I'd seen you somewhere before.
It was on the tip of my tongue to ask his name when Jordan looked around and smiled.
Having a gay time now?
Oh, much better. This is an unusual party for me. I haven't even seen the host. I live next door. This man Gatsby sent over his chauffeur with an invitation.
Well, I'm Gatsby.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
I thought you knew, old sport. I'm afraid I'm not a very good host.
He smiled, one of those rare smiles that you may come across only a few times in life.
Chicago wants you on the phone, sir.
All right, tell him I'll be right there. If you want anything, just ask for it, old sport. Excuse me, I'll rejoin you later.
Who is he?
Oh, he's just a man named Gatsby.
Where is he from? What does he do?
Well, he told me once that he was an Oxford man, but I don't think he went there. Anyhow, he gives large parties and, ooh, I love large parties. They're so intimate. At small parties, there isn't any privacy.
Miss Baker, I beg your pardon, but Mr. Gatsby would like to speak with you alone.
She followed the butler toward the house. I waited in the hall, and a few minutes later, the door of the library opened, and Jordan and Gatsby came out together. Several people approached him to say goodbye.
I've just heard the most amazing thing, but I swore I wouldn't tell him. Here I am tantalizing you.
She hurried off, and I joined Gatsby. I apologized for not having known him in the garden.
Oh, don't mention it. Don't give it another thought.
Philadelphia wants you on the phone, sir.
All right, in a minute. Well, good night, old sport.
Good night. One morning, late in July, Gatsby's gorgeous car lurched up the rocky drive to my door.
Good morning, old sport. You're having lunch with me today, and I thought we'd ride up to New York together. It's a pretty car, isn't it?
I'd seen it. Everybody had seen it. It was a rich yellow, swollen in its monstrous length, and terraced with a labyrinth of windshields that mirrored a dozen suns. Sitting down in a sort of green leather conservatory, we started to town.
Look here, old sport. I'm going to tell you something about my life. I don't want you to get the wrong idea from all these stories you hear. Well, I'm the son of some wealthy people in the Middle West. I was brought up in America, but educated in Oxford because it was a family tradition. Oh, what part of the Middle West? San Francisco.
I see.
Well, my family all died, and I came into a good deal of money. After that, I had lived like a young Raja in all the capitals of Europe, collecting jewels, hunting big game, painting a little, and trying not to forget something very sad that had happened to me. Then came the war. I accepted a commission as first lieutenant. I was promoted to major, and every allied government gave me a decoration. Even Montenegro down in the Adriatic Sea.
He reached in his pocket, and a medal on a ribbon fell into my palm. To my astonishment, the thing had an authentic look. Major J. Gatsby for valor extraordinary.
Well, here's a souvenir from my Oxford days.
It was a photograph of half a dozen young men in blazers. There was Gatsby, looking a little younger, with a cricket bat in his hand. And it was all true.
I'm going to make a big request to you. You'll hear about it this afternoon.
At lunch?
I know, later. I happen to find out that you're taking Miss Baker to tea, and she has kindly consented to speak to you about this matter.
I hadn't the faintest idea what this matter was. We passed through the Valley of Ashes, and I had a glimpse of Myrtle Wilson at the garage pump. And then I heard the jump, spat of a motorcycle and a policeman rode alongside. Taking a white card from his wallet, Gatsby waved before the policeman's eyes.
Oh, right you are, Mr. Gatsby. I know you next time, excuse me.
What was that, the picture of Oxford?
I was able to do the commissioner a favor once. He sends me a Christmas card every year.
In a well-fanned 42nd Street cellar, I met Gatsby and his friend for lunch.
Mr. Carraway, this is my friend, Mr. Wolfsheim.
Oh, hello there. This is a nice restaurant here. But I like the one across the street better.
It's too hot over there.
Hot and small, yes, but full of memories.
What place is that?
The old Metropole. I can't forget so long as I lived the night they shot Rosie Rosenthal. Rosie had eaten drunk all that evening. When it was almost morning, the waiter come up into him and says, somebody outside wants to speak with him. All right, says Rosie. And he begins to get up. And I pulled him down in his chair and said, let the bastards come in here if they want you, Rosie.
Did he go?
Sure. He went outside on the sidewalk and they shot him 3 times and drove away. I understand you're looking for a business connection?
Oh, no. This is just a friend. I told you we'd talk about that some other time.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I had the wrong man.
Excuse me, gentlemen.
He has to go telephone somebody. Fine fellow, isn't he? Handsome and a perfect gentleman. He's an Oxford man.
Have you known Gatsby for a long time?
Oh, several years. I made the pleasure of his acquaintance just after the war. I see you're looking at my cuff buttons. Finest specimens of human molars.
Well, that's an idea. When Gatsby returned to the table and sat down, Mr. Wolfsheim drank his coffee and got to his feet.
Well, I've enjoyed my lunch, and I'm going to run off from you 2 young men before I outstay my welcome.
Oh, don't hurry, Meyer.
No, you're very polite, but I belong to another generation. You sit here and discuss your sports and your young ladies.
He's quite a character around New York. A denizen of Broadway.
Who is he, an actor?
No.
A dentist?
Meyer Wolfsheim is a gambler. He's the man who fixed the World Series back in 1919.
Fixed the World Series? Why isn't he in jail?
Well, they can't get him, old sport. He's a smart man.
Just then, I caught sight of Tom Buchanan headed in our direction.
Nick, where have you been? Daisy's furious because you haven't called up.
This is Mr. Gatsby, Mr. Buchanan.
Well, how do you do, old sport?
Fine, nice to meet you. How'd you happen to come up this far to eat?
I've been having lunch with Mr. Gatsby. I turned toward Gatsby, but he was no longer there. That afternoon, I met Jordan in the tea garden at the Plaza Hotel. She told me Gatsby's story.
One October day in 1917, I was walking the neighborhood. The largest of the lawns belonged to Daisy Faye's house. She was 18 and the most popular girl in Louisville. All day long, her telephone rang and exciting young officers demanded the privilege of monopolizing her that night. When I came to the house that morning, she was sitting in a white roadster with a lieutenant I had never seen before. They were so engrossed in each other, she didn't even see me at first.
Hello, Jordan. Are you going to the Red Cross to make bandages?
I am.
Would you tell them I can't come today?
The officer looked at Daisy in a way that every young girl wants to be looked at. His name was J. Gatsby. By the next year, I had a few beaux of myself, and I began to play in golf tournaments. So I didn't see Daisy very often. Wild rumors were circulating about her, how her mother had found her packing her bags one night to go to New York to say goodnight to a soldier who was going overseas. She was prevented, but after that she didn't play around with soldiers anymore. The following June, she married Tom Buchanan with more pomp and circumstance than Louisville had ever known before. He hired the whole floor of the Seelbach Hotel, and the day before the wedding, he gave her a string of pearls valued at $350,000. I was a bridesmaid, and half an hour before the bridal dinner, I found her lying on her bed as drunk as a monkey. She had a bottle of Sauterne in one hand and a letter in the other.
Congratulate me. I've never had a drink before, but
I had never seen her like that, so I asked, what can I do?
Here, dearest, take these pearls downstairs and give them to whoever they belong to. Tell them all, Daisy's changed her mind.
She cried. She cried and cried, and oh, I rushed out to find her mother's maid, and we got her into a cold bath. She wouldn't let go of the letter. She squeezed it up tight into a little wet ball. We put ice on her forehead and hooked her back into her dress, and half an hour later, the pearls were around her neck and the incident was over. Next day, she married Tom Buchanan. Started off on a 3-month trip to the South Seas. I saw little of them when they came back, and I thought I had never seen a girl so mad about her husband. If he left the room for even a minute, she'd look around uneasily and say,
Where's Tom gone?
The next April, Daisy had her little girl, and they came back to Chicago to settle down. They moved with a fast crowd, all of them young, rich, and wild. Well, about 6 weeks ago, she heard the name Gatsby for the first time in years. It wasn't until then that I connected this Gatsby with the officer in the white car.
It was a strange coincidence.
Oh, but it wasn't a coincidence at all. Gatsby bought the house so that Daisy could be just across the bay. He wants to know if you'll invite Daisy to your house some afternoon and let him come over.
Did I have to know all of this before he could ask such a little thing?
Well, he thought you might be offended. He wants her to see his house, and your house is right next door.
Oh, does Daisy want to see Gatsby?
Gatsby doesn't want you to know, doesn't want her to know. You're just supposed to invite her to tea.
When I came home, Gatsby's house was lit from tower to cellar, but there wasn't a sound. I saw Gatsby walking toward me across his lawn. Your place looks like the World's Fair.
Does it?
Listen, I talked with Jordan. I'm going to call up Daisy tomorrow and invite her over here to tea.
Oh, that's all right. I don't want to put you out to any trouble.
How about the day after tomorrow?
I want to get the grass cut.
I called up Daisy and invited her to come to tea. But don't bring Tom.
What?
Don't bring Tom.
Who is Tom?
We will return you to the WBFR Playoffs in the Air presentation of The Great Gatsby after a word from our sponsor. I give you Miss Lana Sherwood and Sally Applewhite.
Hey there, Sally. Why the long face?
Oh, Lana, I just visited my optometrist and found out I need glasses.
Well, what's wrong with that?
Well, you know what they say. Men seldom make passes at girls who wear glasses.
Well, let me turn that frown upside down and assure you that old adage is simply no longer the case. Not when you're wearing T.J. Eckelberg fashion-designed spectacle frames, that is.
T.J. Eckelberg's fashion-designed spectacle frames?
That's right, Sally. With T.J. Eckelberg fashion-designed spectacle frames, no longer are girls who wear glasses doomed to look owlish, bookish, or just plain dull. Flattering T.J. Eckelberg fashion-designed spectacle frames make you lovelier than you ever thought possible, and they give your spirits a lift.
But fancy wearing the same spectacle frames with all your pretty dresses. Why, that would be like wearing the same hat every day.
Unthinkable! Dress up your eyes with exciting frames that were created for cocktails, meant for the theater, and patterned to parade yourself in.
These days, the fashion accent is on eyes. Your spectacles become the most important part of your personality.
And T.J. Eckelberg fashion-designed spectacle frames see that your eyes have it. When you need 4 eyes instead of 2, don't let that get you down. For this parade of fashion frames will let you go to town with styles galore and lots of allure. T.J. Eckelberg's fashion design spectacle frames.
Now, all those specs will make heads turn in every single season.
When you're walking down the aisle, this will be the reason.
With styles galore renowned oculist and spectacle frame designer T.J. Eckelberg exports his creations to the fashion capitals of the world.
After all, they are the smartest, best craft spectacle frames made anywhere, designed to bring out the best of your looks and put a sparkle in your eyes.
With styles galore and lots of allure, T.J. Eckelberg's fashion design spectacle frames. Be personally fit by your optometrist or optical designer today.
All right, we're off the air. That's intermission. Be back in 15 minutes, folks.